teenage insecurity, we all go through it. We all experience it. I can attest, I went through my fair share of insecurity as a teen, and it sucked, to be completely honest with you. And I think the reason why I want to speak about this today is because The Summer I Turned Pretty, I think it's a great case study on teenage insecurity, and I think the character of Isabel, or Belly Conklin, is just this great example of the teenage girl experience, especially the experience of battling insecurities while trying to navigate young adulthood. And after finishing the second season this past summer and rereading all the books, it was just so clear to me how Belly is this insecure teenage girl who has to go through so much at such a young age, while also having to battle the fact that her body is changing, and then she's going through her first heartbreak, and she's falling out with friends and things like that, while also having to deal with grief. And so I just feel like the narrative surrounding Belly often is like she's annoying or she's messy, but never the fact that she's insecure and she's going through a lot of these things for the first time. And so I just feel like we need to analyze Belly from a different perspective. I feel like we often see the Team Conrad and Team Jeremiah stuff, but often I always see like the hate for Belly. And as somebody who found solace in Belly when I was younger reading the books, and somebody who really related to Belly because I was also just a young person who struggled with insecurities, I truly align with Belly and I feel for her. And so I guess I just want to discuss Belly's character a little bit and examine how her insecurities kind of get the best of her and how they deeply impact relationships with herself as well as with other characters within the books, as well as television series like Conrad and Jeremiah and Taylor. And I guess I also want to kind of talk about how artists like Olivia Rodrigo use music to speak to what it's like to be young and insecure, and just to be full of these ever-changing emotions. And I think Olivia is just a good example of this because she unapologetically acknowledges that she too is insecure. She's insecure about her looks and her intelligence and her place in the world, and I think that she does this so beautifully through songs like Pretty Isn't Pretty and Jealousy Jealousy. And so I kind of hope at the end of this video that I can sway a few of you who are fans of the show and fans of the book series to kind of cast your flag for Team Belly. I just really want the narrative that surrounds her as like this indecisive, annoying girl to change, because I think we're kind of right, like we're all kind of like Belly, right? Like we all were once these like insecure teenagers and teenage insecure girls, right? And I think that with a shift in perspective, we can really see that Belly is just navigating her world for the first time. And I hope that we can kind of give her some grace when it comes to the decisions that she makes, because we know that the summer that she turned pretty wasn't really all that pretty. It really was just insecurity. So there are so many moments within The Summer I Turned Pretty where Belly kind of discusses her insecurities, and we see as a viewer and a reader how her insecurities impact her relationships, usually negatively, and it's kind of sad to see because I guess we could all relate to it in a sense, how our insecurities kind of take over our whole world, and thus they take over our relationships, with not only our relationship with ourselves and how we view ourselves, but also our relationships with other people like family and friends and crushes and potential lovers and whatnot. So I think with Belly, we can see multiple examples of her and her insecurities. There's one moment in the book where, in book 1 in particular, where Belly is talking about her new body, I guess, And she's talking about how her chest has grown in and how she feels embarrassed and uncomfortable by the fact that she now has this new womanly body. She says that she kind of hates that she has breasts now, how they slow her down, how she couldn't run as fast anymore, and she just thought the whole thing of having a chest is just embarrassing. And that's why we see her wear baggy t-shirts and one pieces. She says that she just couldn't stand to hear what the boys would say about it, about her chest, and how she'll feel like they would tease her, and how her brother would tell her to put on clothes, and that would make her feel even more embarrassed than having this new chest. Other moments where Belly talks about her body, right, in this negative light, or where she feels like her body is being spoken about in a negative light, and thus she should view her body in this negative way. We see this in book 1, and it's also present in season 1, where Belly, Taylor, Stephen, and Jeremiah play a game of chicken in the pool when they're in Cousins. And as they're picking their teams and whatnot, Jeremiah calls Taylor, and Stephen gets a little bit annoyed by that because, as Stephen says, no fair, she's lighter, in reference to Taylor. And then he looks over at Belly, and then we see, and we can read about Belly's expression. We could immediately see how off-putting that comment was, and we see her, Belly's expression in her face and her demeanor immediately sour. We could see how hurt and sad she was by this comment, because honestly, it wasn't like she was perceiving her body in this negative way. Like, she wasn't really concerned about her weight or anything like that. And as soon as Stephen made that comment, that insecurity was kind of instilled in her. And we see that as her face grows sad, and as she says she doesn't want to play anymore, and then she throws a quip at Stephen. It's really sad to see how even when she's not putting a negative connotation on her body, other people are, and thus now she kind of has this newfound insecurity surrounding not only the way her body looks because of her growing into a more womanly body, but now due to her weight, which it wouldn't be a problem if she gained weight or anything like that. You are growing, right? You're going to gain weight. So it just sucks that people put a negative connotation on her body, especially family members like her brother. Now I want to get into a few moments where we see Belly comparing herself to other characters, specifically female characters within the series, such as Taylor and Aubrey and Lisa Barone, and she kind of fosters this competition between them and her, and it's usually this one-sided competition. And I think this comes into play especially when it deals with Belly trying to get and maintain male attention and validation from people like Conrad and Jeremiah. I think Taylor is a pretty good example of this, and I think it's also the most prominent example because Taylor and Belly are childhood best friends, and Taylor is honestly one of, if not Belly's only prominent female friendship throughout the entire series. Specifically, we see this in the first 2 books and the first 2 seasons. And yes, I know that Belly branches out and makes new friends in book 3 when she's in college, friends like Annika. But I digress. I truly think that Taylor and Belly are the most prominent female friendship within the series. And these two are essentially attached at the hip, except when it comes to Summer. Summer is when we see the best friends separate, and Belly is usually off at Cousins, and Taylor is usually at home. And so when Taylor visits Belly at Cousins during certain summers, this is where we see the dynamic between the two change. So Belly is more concerned with hanging out with the boys and swimming and playing games at the fair, while Taylor is more concerned about getting a tan and playing spin the bottle. And with this, we start to see that Belly notices that the boys are taking an interest in Taylor. Whether it's because of her confidence or her brash personality, the boys just can't stop looking and engaging with Taylor. even if the boys really only see her as a friend. Now, why is this important, and why does this add to Belly's insecurities and how it impacts relationships? Well, we start to see it impact relationship with Taylor because Belly starts to speak on Taylor's appearance. Belly wants the boys to know that Taylor's hair isn't naturally blonde, that she's just stunning, that she isn't naturally endowed in the chest area, and so Taylor wears a miracle bra. Belly is even happy when Taylor feels uncomfortable in the outfit that she chooses because she's tired of Taylor showing off. And I think this is the start of like readers and viewers starting to understand that Belly here is a little bit insecure when it comes to Taylor because of the way Taylor is just getting attention from Conrad and Jeremiah. And we see this because Belly wants to immediately make Taylor feel small and feel bad about herself in order for Belly to kind of feel better about herself. And I think this is particularly interesting where we see this sort of jealousy or this sort of rocky relationship between Taylor and Belly. And we kind of start to see that Belly views herself in competition with Taylor when it comes to Jeremiah. In book 1, and I believe in the television series as well, Jeremiah is interested in Taylor, and Taylor is a little bit interested in Jeremiah. And as Belly notes in the books, and I believe in the television series as well, she says that she wants to keep Jeremiah to herself because Belly says that Jeremiah is her friend, that he is not Taylor's friend. So we already start to see that Belly wants to have the attention of Jeremiah solely to herself. And so in book 1, I'm not sure if this is mirrored in the television series, but Belly and Jeremiah share their first kiss during a game of Truth or Dare. And it's also assumed that Taylor and Jeremiah also share a kiss after this game. And so Belly is angry at Taylor and she yells at her saying that Taylor has ruined her summer. The next day comes around and Belly finds Taylor kissing Steven. This is when we see Belly erupt and fight with Taylor. This part is also mirrored in the books. Mirrored in the television series. To Belly, she is starting this fight with Taylor because she thinks that she is defending her friend Jeremiah. Because to Belly, Jeremiah really liked Taylor and Taylor really liked him. But in reality, we can see that Belly is really belittling Taylor. That Belly really is trying to make Taylor feel small in this situation. Belly believes that Taylor is doing all of this because she wants Belly to stay the same little girl forever. While Taylor, as Belly says in book 1, while Taylor grows bigger breasts and she quits violin and she gets to kiss Jeremiah and gets to kiss her brother. And towards the end of this fight, Belly says some hurtful things to Taylor. She calls Taylor slutty. And she does this to hurt her, right? To kind of best Taylor in this one-sided competition. Belly says in book 1, quote, "So this was my power over her, my supposed innocence over her supposed sluttiness." End quote. And even in this time where Belly believes that she is the victor of this one-sided competition with Taylor, she still wants to be like Taylor, wants to be better than Taylor in a sense. Because at the end of this fight, Belly says something along the lines of, she would have traded her spot, she would have traded her innocence for Taylor's sluttiness in a second. And I think it's clear here that Belly and her insecurities surrounding her body, surrounding her confidence, surrounding her wanting to get the attention and validation from men like Steven and like Jeremiah and Conrad. And yes, I mentioned Steven because she wants to be liked by her brother, right? She wants to be viewed as a mature person, somebody who gets to be in those jokes and everything like that, the way Taylor is part of those jokes. And we see that because of those insecurities, he ruins her relationships with people, but specifically she ruins her relationship with Taylor here, her best friendship with Taylor. And it's not until book 3 in the television series, it's not until like the later episodes of season 1 do we see these once close best friends reconcile. And I think what Laurel says in book 1, and I believe in season 1, during the end of this fight, is something so important that really hits the nail home on this. Laurel says that, quote, "Best friends are important. They're the closest thing to a sister you'll ever have. Don't squander it," end quote. And it's clear that Belly doesn't listen to this message from Laurel. She instead feels offended by it, that Laurel even says such a thing to her. And so she ignores her. And I think it's sad because due to Belly and her insecurities, and to Belly viewing Taylor as a competitor for attention, a competitor like in the whole scheme of things or whatever, instead of viewing Taylor as a friend, she squanders her relationship with Taylor. And I think it's sad, 'cause I feel like lots of teenage girls kind of go through this too, right? Where like our friend is getting more attention, we think our friend is prettier and smarter and whatever, and so we kind of foster this competition with them in our heads, and that competition is not really, it's not real. It's a figment of our imaginations. It's because of our insecurities, and because of that we end up costing a great friendship. Like I said before, there are other women where Belly kind of compares herself to, where she views this or has this competition with these other women, though it's one-sided. And I mentioned Aubrey and Lacey Barone. When it comes to Aubrey in particular, the moment is small. It seems like a minor interaction, but I think it's very important and very prominent. So at the funeral of Susanna in book 2 and season 2, we see that Aubrey, Conrad's ex-girlfriend, is comforting Conrad. We get a little bit more context in the show that Aubrey is comforting Conrad, not because they are back together or anything like that, but because Conrad is like suffering from an anxiety attack and panic attacks, and Aubrey was the closest person there, and Aubrey knows about Conrad's anxiety attacks and whatnot, and so she's there to comfort him. We don't get that context in the book, but I think the show does a good job of giving us that background information. And so when Belly walks in on Aubrey comforting Conrad, Belly says this, quote, "Aubrey, the girl who broke Conrad's heart, I pictured her differently. I pictured her blonde. This girl was prettier than what I had pictured. I could never compete with a girl like that," end quote. And you know, that's really important that we get to see this little snippet of what's going on in Belly's mind when she sees this. Because we can see that instead of seeing or understanding that Aubrey is comforting Conrad, that this is a funeral for his mother, right? That instead of like kind of seeing that, instead what's turning in Belly's head is that she's in competition with another person. And I think with her feeling insecure about her looks in this moment, her feeling insecure about whether she's worthy of love, whether she's enough for Conrad, this all comes to blows when Conrad and Belly have a little fight at the funeral. Belly tells Conrad to go to hell, and she immediately regrets what she says because she realizes that she has caused some irreparable damage to her already fragile relationship with Conrad at this moment. And it's I think when we see Belly immediately regret what she says, It's one of the few moments where she realizes where her insecurities are taking over her life. And I think she finally sees that her insecurities surrounding her look, surrounding not feeling worthy enough, not feeling enough, are like negatively affecting her relationships, specifically like her really important and prized relationships with people like Conrad. Now Lacey. In terms of Lacey, in book 3, which I hope we get to see this in season 3, because I do think that the Lacey Barone storyline is important and a big moment in the book. But Belly kind of sizes up Lacey Barone in book 3. She examines her looks, her raspy voice, etc. And Belly even notes that Lacey is a member of this sorority, and Belly and Taylor kind of describe a sorority as a sorority for, and I quote, party girls and sluts, end quote. Just these few sentences that introduce Lacey to the reader already summarizes how Belly feels about Lacey. And yes, we see that Belly kind of tries to backtrack and say how Lacey is a nice girl. But she has already characterized her as someone who Jeremiah would like. She already has characterized her as a party girl, as somebody who's older, somebody who's more social, somebody who's pretty, and all these things. So she kind of creates this competition between herself and Lacey. And it's interesting to see, because though Belly tries to reassure herself that Lacey is not a threat to herself and not a threat to her relationship with Jeremiah, Belly ultimately views Lacey as a competitor for Jeremiah's heart and attention. So again, I feel like with women like Aubrey and Lacey and Taylor, she creates this competition that divides her and these women. And yes, like Aubrey and Lacey aren't Belly's friends, but I still think that because of her insecurities and because of her creating this competition with these women, she then essentially starts to ruin her relationships with, it starts to impact her relationships with people like Conrad and Jeremiah and Taylor. There's a moment in book 1 where Belly says this: part of me did want to show off and wow them, the boys, with how much I had grown, how I was a real girl now. But the other part, more sane part, knew it would be a death wish. Stephen would throw a towel over my head and I would feel 10 years old again instead of 13. This is in book 1 during a flashback scene. And I think this is very important because I think it also kind of speaks to Belly's insecurities a little bit. Belly notes how she wants to be viewed as a real girl, how she wants to be viewed as grown. And I think this sentiment is mirrored in season 1 of the television series, where she agrees to be a debutante ball at the Cousins' Deb Ball. Now, the Deb Ball isn't a storyline in the books, but I think the reasoning for Belly wanting to be a debutante in the first place kind of speaks to this feeling of Belly wanting to be viewed as a real girl and as grown and mature. When first introduced to the idea of being a debutante by Susanna, her initial reaction is not necessarily excitement. Belly is a bit closed off to the idea, but she's curious as to what a Deb Ball is and like how she can get involved in what it entails. So Susanna gives her spiel about Deb Balls in 2022 being more about girls gaining confidence and networking and being viewed as mature, even though the idea of it may be a little bit antiquated. Now, Susanna says this important word, mature. And that's when Belly's interest is really piqued. We see her face light up a little bit. But that interest is like immediately shot down as Stephen and Jeremiah make fun of Belly. Stephen calls Belly immature and says that she is the farthest thing from being a woman. And Jeremiah laughs along right with Stephen while he continues to make fun of Belly. And even Conrad, somebody who Belly looks up to, And Myers makes these snide comments about the whole dead ball thing and saying how it's stupid and whatnot. And I think what even hurts Belly a little bit more is the fact that her mother, Laurel, even laughs at the idea of Belly taking part in the dead ball. Besides Laurel thinking that the idea of a dead ball is antiquated, she thinks that Belly wouldn't even fit in with the idea of being a debutante. She calls Belly her little feral alley cat while patting her head. And Belly's body language and face speak 1,000 words. It speaks for us all. That it's so clear that she feels uncomfortable with being perceived as a young, immature girl by her friends and her family. And I mean, I kind of get that. Like, if your friends and family viewed you as this child who viewed you as immature, somebody who is like a feral alley cat, when you want to be viewed as grown, as a real girl, as a young adult, how would you feel? Like I said earlier, Belly says how she doesn't want to feel like she's 10. She doesn't want to feel young. She wants to feel like she is this 13-year-old girl in the books, but this 15, 16-year-old girl in the show. Like, she wants to be viewed as a young adult. And so the next day, Belly signs up for the dead ball. And I think we see that Belly views this as an opportunity to be perceived as this mature young woman that she always wanted to be. And I think this is a way for her to prove to other people that she is mature, that she is a real girl, that she is grown. I also think that Belly's interactions with Cam Cameron in the earlier chapters of book 1, as well as the earlier episodes of season 1, speak to Belly's insecurities. And I think this kind of summarizes my point in a way. As Belly and Cam Cameron are talking in the car after their first date, Cam Cameron brings up how he remembered who Belly is. And this is in book 1. Belly and Cam Cameron do have a date in the television series, but it's a little bit different how they portray it in the show. But I digress. He tells her that he remembers her from the 8th grade Latin convention because he thought that she was really pretty. He even says that he thought that she was the prettiest girl he had ever seen. Now, Belly shrugs off this compliment and thinks that he's joking with her because the boys, Steven, Conrad, and Jeremiah, would often start compliments as jokes. And so Belly just simply can't believe, she couldn't believe that Cam Cameron or really anyone can view her as pretty, because she just didn't believe that she was beautiful. She even says this, quote, I just didn't see how it could be true. It was almost mean of him, Cam Cameron, to lie about it. I knew what I looked like back then, and I wasn't the prettiest girl anybody had ever seen. Not with my thick glasses and chubby cheeks and little girl body, end quote. So often, Belly is in this belief that people view her as pretty, that they believe that she's beautiful, that they believe that she is funny and smart and somebody who they could be friends with or they could be romantically interested in. And to see that she says that she just wasn't the prettiest girl that anybody had ever seen, like emphasis on anybody because of the way she looked, it's just incredibly sad. And like when she emphasizes her little girl body, I'm like, you were in 8th grade. You're going to have a little girl body. Like, that's fine. But to Belly, she just didn't believe that was okay. And it's just sad to me that she just couldn't see that she was beautiful then and beautiful now. And it's sad that she kind of needed this validation from a boy to even slightly believe that she is beautiful, that she had to believe that this random summer is when she became pretty. And I think that's kind of sad. So the one thing I really love about The Summer I Turned Pretty, the series, the television series, is the way music really just makes an appearance in the show and how it really supports the story. And I think we see so many beautiful songs within the television series by amazing artists like Taylor Swift and Olivia Rodrigo. And I think there are songs that would be perfect for Belly in the 3rd season of The Summer I Turned Pretty, such as Mirror Ball by Taylor Swift, or Opposite by Sabrina Carpenter, or even Matilda by Harry Styles. But I think there's one song in particular that I think just perfectly encapsulates the insecurity that teenage girls feel, and specifically captures the insecurity that Belly experiences. And this song is Isn't Pretty by Olivia Rodrigo. Now, this song is the 11th track off Olivia Rodrigo's sophomore album, Guts. And this song highlights the expectations and societal pressures of being a teenage girl. How oftentimes teenage girls are, like, we compare ourselves to our peers and to celebrities and to complete strangers, and how we often wish we had someone else's life. We wish to be thinner, to be taller, to have perfect teeth, and all this stuff. And we overanalyze our bodies and our personalities and things like that. And we do all of this just so we can be pretty. And it's honestly a scary mindset that's been instilled in us from such a young age. And I think Pretty Isn't Pretty is Olivia's cry to society that no matter what she does, no matter what we do, it just won't be enough in the eyes of our society. I love in this song when Olivia says, I could change up my body, I could change up my face, I could change up my hair, I could try every lipstick and in every shade, but it doesn't matter at the end of the day, right? That pretty isn't pretty enough. And this song to me just perfectly fits within the show and within the series as a whole, because Belly and Olivia are essentially feeling and experiencing the same things. I mean, Belly and Olivia and millions of teenage girls are feeling and experiencing the same thing. And I think this song would be a perfect addition to the series, because I just think it would show that Belly's feelings of insecurity are not something that to be ashamed of, right? That it's common among teenage girls. I think it would be a great message. And I think this song is perfect because I just feel like Pretty Isn't Pretty is raw and it's honest. It's not an anthem for self-love, but it's a direct critique of the world we women live in. That beauty is pain, and that attaining beauty in the eyes of the society and its standards is an ugly, ugly process. And I think the song Pretty Isn't Pretty would even be a direct critique to the series in its title, The Summer I Turned Pretty, as well. I just believe this song in the background of season 3, I think we'll be able to really truly see one of the main themes of the series, and that's teenage insecurity. So as the 2nd season wrapped up, and as we are starting to get the 3rd season in development, and hopefully we get to enjoy it next summer, hopefully we can start to understand that Belly is a very complex character who goes through a lot during her teenage years. And I think with Belly in particular, we should analyze her actions from the perspective of a teenage girl dealing with a lot of insecurities. We should give her some grace, just a little bit of grace, right? Because we know that pretty isn't always what it seems, that really it's insecurity. Okay, so you made it to the end of this video, and I hope that I have swayed a few of you to cast your flag for Team Belly. And if not, that's totally okay. But I just hope that at the end of this video that you at least can start to understand Belly and her perspective and what it's like for Belly to go through these things and to be this insecure girl, right? And I just hope that the narrative surrounding Belly of being messy or being annoying changes a little bit. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I truly do love Belly. This is like my love letter to her because I understand what she's going through, and I just want other people to understand that as well. So yeah, thank you so much. Give this video a like, drop a comment, and have a great day.